And now, a continuation of CHRONOMASTER by Roger Zelazny and Jane Lindskold, as read by the Plurality Report for a one-take toilet top audiobook production. Chapter 13. Twister was angry that Corda dodged the scimitar's first swipe easily. The second wasn't as easy, but he managed to subvocalize a message to Jester. "Hey, Jess! Have you flipped, Sugar Pop?" the reed line asked. "No, I said I'd fight him with just what I have here," Corda said. He tucked and rolled, coming up against a squealing harem girl. "That includes a certain very clever PDA." "I'm with you," Jester said. "Where would you be if I wasn't?" Corda didn't spare the breath to answer. He knew he was far better in hand-to-hand combat than Twister had expected, but then many underestimated a 300-year-old universe creator. If they knew his age, they assumed that he had lost interest in physical skills. If they did not, they only saw his casual manner, the glasses, and the PDA, and dismissed him as a threat. Both impressions worked to Corda's advantage, and he made a point of not advertising his abilities unless it was precisely necessary. Time to start showing off and let Jester do her thing. First, he launched into a flying kick. Twister was good enough that Corda failed to disarm him, but the Sheik's arm was temporarily numbed. Corda retreated in a series of backflips that set those harem girls who were not in stasis into cheers. Twister was infuriated. He tossed his scimitar into his free hand. His next series of attacks sliced a thin, bloody cut across Corda's abdomen and proved that the Sheik was effectively ambidextrous. Corda heard Miriam scream and Tico grab her to keep her from running to his rescue. "This is a duel, Desert Flower," the diplomat said, his voice grating with suppressed emotion. "We dare not interfere, lest we break the terms." Hooking his foot behind Twister's ankle, Corda set his opponent off balance. Unfortunately, he also took a nick to the side of his neck. The blood ran warm and free, soaking his collar. "Sugar Pop!" Jester cried. "I'm okay," he muttered. From the faint crackle of static, he could tell that Twister had come close to severing his throat mic. There was no time for further reflection. Twister was coming at him, cool and collected, now that he believed he had the win in hand. Corda felt himself being backed into the wall. Ducking, he scooped up an overstuffed pillow and flung it in Twister's face. As the Desert Sheik dodged, Corda bent down, grasped the edge of one of the small oriental rugs that littered the harem floor, and tugged. Twister fell. "Jester, any time now would be fine with me," he gasped, wiping his face and feeling his sleeves soak up blood. Twister must have tagged him again. "Have to find the frequency, Sugar Pop," she answered. "Wouldn't want to switch you off now, would I?" Corda didn't waste time shaking his head. Twister had regained his footing and was coming at him. The silver of the scimitar's blade was washed with the red of Corda's blood. Corda himself was just about out of tricks. Twister was avoiding the pillows and had kicked most of the rugs to the side. His numbed arm had regained its sensation, and he stood poised, tossing his scimitar from hand to hand, waiting for Corda to come to him. Weaving with an exhaustion that he wished was completely feigned, Corda stood looking for an opening. It really had been a hell of a day. Almighty God was clicking pool balls in his hand. His voice resonated with thunder. "What was wrong with the universe I designed?" Almighty God asked cordially. "You never really answered my question." "Come to me, Renee Corda," Twister said. "You asked for this duel. Do you concede?" Corda shook his head. "No." "Punch him one and then drop back," the PDA ordered. "If you don't, your bottled time will keep Twister active, and nothing I do will make a difference," read the readout. "Answer my question, Renee," Almighty God bellowed. Corda struck a kata, then moved on Dwister. His eyes were on the blade, on the alert pale face below the Arab headdress. He fainted and Dwister swung, slashing Corda's thigh. Then Corda grabbed Dwister's braided headband and pulled down. At the same time, he brought his knee up, hard. Gasping, Dwister doubled over. Corda reeled back, lightheaded from blood loss. "Because your universe was so full of jerks," he said to the waiting god. "I thought I could do better." "Oh, and did you?" "Not really," Corda said, trying to stand. "But I had to try." Pawing his headdress from his eyes, Dwister pushed himself to his feet, using his scimitar as a cane. The Desert Sheik's blue eyes were full of Corda's death, and Corda realized he would not be able to move in time to stop him. Then time stopped for Dwister. "None too soon, huh, Sugar Pop?" Jester said cheerfully. Corda wanted to answer her, but the noise of the pool balls clacking was too loud. He slid down the rough stucco of the ornamental wall into a heap of pillows. "You broke last time," Almighty God said. "Stu, I'll give you the first shot." When Dwister was seized by stasis and Renee Corda collapsed in a faint, Miriam started to cheer. Then she saw Slive lowering itself from the ceiling on a thick strand of cable, and the joyful shout died in her throat. "Tico!" she cried, pointing. "If that spider gets within range of Dwister..." "It's bottled time will reactivate him," Tico finished, already running to block Slive. "Jester, can't you do anything?" The PDA hung in the air. Its reply was flat and mechanical, an indication that it was diverting a great deal of computing power to finding a solution. "Working. Solutions that do not create stasis for all involved complicate computations." Slive was retreating to the ceiling now, clearly aware that it would be able to reach Dwister more easily without ground-level impediments. Hollering an inarticulate battle cry, Tico hurled one of the smaller pillows at the spider's web. His bulky missile succeeded in breaking the drop line. Slive fell to the floor, unhurt, but unable to reset a line on the ceiling without making itself vulnerable to attack. It reared on its back 4 legs, its front legs and mandibles moving menacingly. More slowly, it moved toward the wall. Stay away," it hissed in their minds. "Slive am I, and death am I to you who have felt my poison once. Stay back and live." "For what?" Miriam said. Her voice was steady, but there was a wildness in her dark eyes that made them flash like ebon diamonds. "So that your master can kill and torture us?" "Miriam!" Tico shouted. He reached for her, but was too late. The slender desert girl flung herself directly at where Slive's bottled time glowed at the joint of its abdomen. There was a crinkling noise as she wrenched it free, but now her own bottled time kept the blonde spider activated. As it had outside of Tico's house, Slive wrapped its legs around Miriam. With a solid crunch, the deadly mandibles delivered their poison into her arm. She fell limp. Slive dropped her, but soon stood over her like an aggressive dog, waving its forelimbs in challenge to Tico. "Come, bridegroom, come and join your bride in the halls of insanity," it hissed seductively. "Perhaps if you hasten, you will walk with her." Face streaked with tears, Tico lumbered like a sleepwalker toward the blonde tarantula and his dying bride. His sobs nearly drowned out the words of the hovering PDA. Parameters shifted, solution found, and time stopped for Tico. Beneath Slive, Miriam's bottled time went dormant. The spider froze. From the vantage of her PDA, Jester surveyed the room. A few of the harem girls within her area of effect and a few close to Corda were active. Most of their faces were slack with terror and incomprehension. Others were looking at their stasis-bound master with an emotion approaching hatred. One, the redhead, who had been brushing her hair when the stasis came, set down her comb. She tilted her head to make eye contact with the PDA. "Your master bleeds," she said in a clear soprano, "and you lack hands. Would you have me bind his wounds?" The PDA lowered to face her. "If you hurt him, I'll make certain that anything Dwister would do to you would seem like a holiday." "I am Ruth," the redhead answered, "and I have no love for Dwister. Let me help Rene Korda. He bleeds. As he bleeds, Slive's poison regains its hold on him." "Right, Ruth," Jester said. "Take Rene's pack. There's a first aid kit in it. I'll tell you what to do." Ruth picked up the pack. "I may know something of what to do. Before I was taken into the harem, I was training to be a veterinarian. Twister saw me when he was inspecting some racing camels that were in my care, and he coveted me. I was given no choice but to come here." The PDA had turned to watch the other active harem girls. "All of you trot over against the wall. The stasis will take you, but as you already know, it won't hurt." Perhaps it was some measure of how successfully Dwister had broken their will, but all the girls obeyed the little sphere without question. "Gee, that was easier than I thought it would be," Jester said to Ruth. After administering a soporific to Korda, Ruth had soaked a wad of gauze in antiseptic and had begun cleaning Korda's cuts. She glanced up at the PDA. "They all have learned to obey," she said. "I protested at being brought here, and was told that if I did not obey, my family would be killed. To prove that he was serious, Twister tortured my mother. I stopped fighting at once." "That's horrible," Jester said. "I guess if it hadn't been for the threat of Slive's poison, you would have killed Twister." "The threat to myself would not have stopped me," Ruth said calmly. "But Twister warned each of us that upon the event of his death at the hand of any one of us, and all of our families would be tortured to death. Such a threat makes one meek indeed." "Indeed," Chester replied. "I guess we better get you out of here when we go." Ruth frowned. "Can your ship carry all of us and all of our families?" No, Chester said. "We don't even have the digital storage capacity." "Then we must remain and hope that Dwister places the blame solely on Rene Korda," Ruth said. "I believe that he will, and since you have made certain the rest of the harem is in stasis, there will be no witnesses to our conversation." The PDA bobbed, but not even the vast computer brain could find a better answer. Even if she slew Dwister, his final commands would remain. She could not kill every one of his servants. She didn't even know who would have been given his murderous final orders. Ruth did not seem to feel any useless pity for herself or her circumstances. Her slim fingers moved deftly as she checked each of the wounds for poison or infection. Veterinary studies had clearly included use of a sonic skin knitter, for she deftly stitched closed the worst of Korda's wounds. Korda tossed and turned some as she worked, but the sleeping drugs and blood loss held him. Occasionally he muttered something about side pockets and balls. Once, quite clearly, he asked for the chalk. "He will recover quickly now," Ruth said, giving him a final shot. "The drug I gave him will stimulate blood replacement, and the new blood will dilute the remaining poison in his system. How much time do you have left?" Jester checked the reading. "Wow! Renee and I have less than an hour apiece. The others have more. Since I turned off their units, they haven't used any." "Korda will need about an hour to regain his strength," Ruth said. "I suggest to you that the others return to your vessel and you take their time." The PDA would have frowned if it could. "Perhaps we should all go back," Jester said. "Renee could heal, and, well, if Miriam... Tico's going to be in bad shape." "Normally I would agree," Ruth said. "But there is one thing I have not told you. Sheik Dwister received a message about a day before your arrival. I cannot be certain how long as our universe was already in stasis. He, however, had reactivated the harem to amuse him while he considered what to do, so I witnessed its arrival. It came on a message missile equipped with bottled time and sent to home in on Dwister himself. I believe that someone is coming to Aurans. An ally of Dwister would most certainly not be a friend of yours. Jester agreed. Leaving Corda to begin recovering, she took a length of rope in her mouth and, carefully judging the limits, she touched Tico with her own bottled time. When the diplomat came active, she drew him clear of Miriam and Slive. "Nothing is going to happen there that hasn't happened already," she explained patiently. "The only thing that might happen is that you start things moving again and ruin any chance that Miriam has. Now are you ready to listen?" Tico wiped the tears from his face, took a shuddering breath, and nodded. "I listen, electronic imp," he said with a poor imitation of his usual eloquence. "Good. First of all, do you still have that transportation water?" "I do," Tico said, tapping the canteen at his waist. The PDA's tones brooked no argument. "Then this is what you're going to do. We're going to pull Miriam out from under Slive. If we move fast enough, we should be able to do so without fully reactivating the spider. Next, I'm going to dose her with my antidote. The poison barely had a chance to get into her system this time before she went into stasis. Hopefully, the antidote will slow it further. You're going to leave all but one unit of bottled time here, drink that water, and take Miriam back to the Jester. My facilities there may be able to help you. If not, I can direct you how to put her into digital storage. I think that once we're outside Aurans, Slive's poison will lose some of its potency. It has to be dependent on the physics of this universe for some of its effectiveness. Got it?" Tico nodded, his astonishment evident. Like Corda himself, Jester was easy to underestimate. Her teasing playfulness usually made people forget that she was, after all, a computer powerful enough to run a starship. "I understand, and I will obey," he said. I only have one question. You speak of helping me to treat Miriam. Certainly you do not plan on abandoning Renee." The PDA laughed. "I can be more than one place at a time, Tico. For most of this jaunt, I've been playing Sekhet with Arabu back on his ship as well. I won't abandon the boss. If things get too heavy here, I'll just tune you folks out and concentrate on helping him." "Then I agree to your plan," Tico said. "I pray to Allah that we will indeed be able to preserve my love's life." The retrieval went according to plan, and although Miriam was clearly suffering nightmares, she was also still alive. Tico vanished with her back to the Jester just as Corda began coming out from under the effects of the soporific that Ruth had given him. He sipped water while Jester introduced him to Ruth and brought him up to the minute events. When the computer finished, he sighed and propped himself up on one elbow. "Then the only thing that remains is to find the world key and reactivate the universe of Aurans," Corda said. "I saved enough of the transport water that we should be able to return to the Jester when the job is done," the PDA said. "That way, we shouldn't need to tackle Dwister again." "Good," Corda said. "I'm at a loss to where to find the world key, though. The direction finder says it's here, but I don't see it. Does your radar find anything underground?" "Not really, boss," Jester replied. "I scanned while we were waiting for you to come around." Ruth cleared her throat. "I've been thinking, ever since Jester told me of your need. I believe I may have your answer, or at least part of it. There was something that I once heard Dwister recite. It was so odd that I committed it to memory." "Yes," Corda said. Ruth smiled. "How are you at riddles, Renee Corda?" "Riddles?" Corda said. "Fair. Well, let's hear this one." Ruth folded her hands, lowered her eyes, and recited. "Born in a bathtub, giver of wishes, scented with juniper, sealed by Solomon. Tell me who I am." "Now," Ruth said with a sad smile, "I will retreat into stasis with my harem sisters. It would not do for me to hear the unraveling of this riddle." "Are you certain we can't help you?" Jester asked, her tones pleading. Free our universe from stasis, Ruth said, and perhaps someday we will free ourselves from the tyranny of Twister. Farewell, and good luck. Taking her hand, Corda pressed her fingers to his lips. My thanks for your help. We will do our best for you. Thank you, Ruth said. Then she walked away from them and out of the grasp of time. Jester sighed. That's one brave and noble lady. We've got to help her. Corda frowned. We do indeed. Jester, start a scan for anything that might link these lines. Boss, she exclaimed, that's cheating. When the fate of a universe and all its people rests on my guessing a riddle, Corda said, aware that he sounded hopelessly pompous, then I cheat. While Jester processed, Corda paced, checking the limits of his strength. Perhaps it was the lingering effect of Slive's poison encouraging him to think in a non-linear fashion, but he made an immediate connection. Jess, what was Solomon's seal used to close? A genie bottle, she answered promptly. Genies give wishes, Corda said, so that fits. Anything in your records linking bathtubs with any of this or with juniper? Again, the answer came quickly. Juniper is an evergreen. Its scent is associated with the alcoholic beverage gin. Gin, of course, was distilled in bathtubs during the period known as Prohibition. Corda interrupted her. Gin, spelled slightly differently, with a D and an extra N, is another word for genies. He addressed his words to the room at large. So that's what you are, gin or genies? Around them, the room shimmered. Corda felt a slight uncomfortable sensation, as if he was being turned inside out. Then he stood before the complex panels of the Auron's world key. Sensors registered anomalies consistent with the use of magic when the room was exposed, Jester reported. On the readout, Boss, we could have dug to the planet's core, and we wouldn't have found this place. Corda flexed his fingers, feeling as always when standing before a world key, a bit like a maestro confronted with the largest piano in creation. How is Miriam? He asked, starting to work. Tico and Arabu are working with her. They think she's out of physical danger, but there is the question of damage to her sanity. 2 doses of Slive's poison could do that, Corda agreed, thinking of his encounters with pool-playing Almighty God. Whoever did the shutdown was a professional. This is a tidy job. I wonder... What, boss? If I knew whoever it is who did this, he said. Some of the little quirks seem familiar. Quirks? There are lots of ways to work a world key, Corda explained as he did so. I'm fairly conservative. I tend to set up all the safety features before I work. Whoever did this job left a few steps out. Maybe whoever it was in a hurry, Jester said. I'm sure that was part of it, Corda agreed, but it still speaks of a reckless style. I'm willing to guess that whoever did this job didn't finish the entire course of training at the academy. I know I got a lot more careful after I finished the course and learned firsthand all the effort that goes into making a universe. Maybe we could check the academy files, Jester suggested. We could, Corda said, and we should. But that will probably give us more dead ends than not. Lots of people drop out. Universe creation isn't learned overnight. I'd still advise checking, Jester said primly. Oh, I agree, Corda said. I'm just haunted by the sense of familiarity here. When you cross-check, see how many of the dropouts were students of mine. We'll run the search on those first. Gotcha, boss, Jester promised. I can't start until we're back in Universe Prime, but when I get there I'll run the charges through the Terran Regional Rep's office. Good, Corda said absently, distracted by the increasingly fine manipulations the world key demanded of him. He worked for about 10 more minutes, checking sequencing and assuring himself that Auron's was now up and running. Done, he announced. Let's drink that water and get out of here. Time's running for everyone now, and that includes some people who are pretty angry with us. He downed a swig from the canteen Tico had left. The water was slightly effervescent and stung his mouth pleasantly. He concentrated on the bridge of the Jester, his comfortable chair. "Remember, boss," Jester said, snuggling her PDA into his hand, "there's no place like home." As soon as they were back on the Jester, Corda ordered the departure sequence started. Then he hurried to where Tico and Arabu were watching over Miriam. "At Jester's advisement, we started a blood transfusion from your stores," Tico said. "We've also been talking to her steadily in case our voices can penetrate the hallucinations and comfort her." Corda nodded, his attention on Miriam. Her breathing was slow and steady, but there was a bruised look to the skin around her eyes. Tico didn't look much better. "We'll be leaving the universe of Aurans in 3 minutes, Jester reported, her hologram popping into sight on the nearest holopad. "Boss, I detected a ship under bottled time on the far reaches of the planet, Herring, just before stasis was broken. Do you want to check it out?" "No," Corda said, the word coming out more forcefully than he had intended. "We've done what we came for. Let Dwister deal with his own visitors. They may even be welcome." When the Jester departed the universe of Aurans, within 5 minutes, 2 things happened. "Miriam shows marked change," Jester said, her hologram dancing from foot to foot. "My medical sensors report that REM sleep is drifting into a more restful cycle. Her heart rate and breathing are rising toward normal levels." Tico did not release his grip on Miriam's hand, but his dark eyes brightened. "Then she's recovering?" he asked. "Seems like it, Tico," Jester said. "Looks like the boss was right when he said the physics of Aurans had something to do with the effectiveness of the poison." "Lucky guess, huh?" Corda felt too good to rise to the bait. Arabu beamed, 2 tears trickling from his blind eyes down his face. Removing his flute from his breast pocket, he began to pipe a haunting but happy melody. "Boss, I don't want to interrupt the celebration," Corda's reed line said, "but I have a message for you from the Terran regional representative." "I'll take it on the bridge," Corda said, and he slipped away from the music and the glow of the relieved father and husband. "Mr. Corda," Conchita Devenu said, her recorded smile a bit tight, "we have information that the saboteur responsible for the stasis on Aurans and Herbs may now be in the universe of Fortuna. If you are interested in continuing this job, have Jester contact my office directly. We will send you the coordinates." "The owner of Fortuna is named Alakra. He has agreed to your coming, but otherwise does not seem very worried about the possible threat. The information regarding the saboteur and your assistance was relayed to him through intermediaries, so as far as I know, he does not know of the involvement of the Terran regional government. I would prefer that it remain so. If you accept, I thank you in advance. If you do not, I appreciate your working with us thus far. Good luck." Corda stretched. "Get those coordinates, Jess, then pull the file on Fortuna. I'll head down and ask our passengers if they'd like to come along. Tico and Miriam certainly deserve a honeymoon after everything they've been through, and I've heard Fortuna is some of the best luxury resorts around." "Right, Sugar Pop." Corda grinned. Let Jester have her fun. They were closing on the saboteur, and he'd have his own fun soon enough. Interlude 2. Detir brought the endgame out of close orbit around the planet Herring. The disembodied brain had spent a very instructive wait observing the construction planet-side. Dwister was apparently replicating various sites related to what Old Terra still called World War II. One did not need to have Detir's encyclopedic knowledge of military conflict to be aware that most of the sites being reconstructed related to major events in the career of Lawrence of Arabia. Detir wondered If, when Dwister grew tired of playing Arabian Nights on Aurans, he planned to step into the history of T.E. Lawrence, perhaps Dwister would invite Detir over to play. The disembodied brain chuckled to himself. He would rather enjoy playing the Turks and Nazis. However, such diversions would need to wait until the current difficulty was resolved. Detir waited until Aurans was out of stasis and the jester had departed before moving to contact Dwister. He had found Rene Corda disquieting and wanted nothing more to do with the universe creator. Detir landed the endgame on a sandy field near Palace Gate and signaled Dwister in a code that very few other people, 6 to be precise, knew. Dwister answered immediately. Detir? The desert sheik, Detir noted, looked rather worse for wear. What brings you here?
I believe I sent you a message regarding my coming, Detir said. Perhaps the blows you have evidently taken to your head have removed the knowledge.
An angry red flooded Dwister's pale countenance. He glowered at Detir. Perhaps I had more important things on my mind than your message, Detir, he replied. I have located your ship. Stay there and I will join you shortly. Detir had no intention of doing otherwise. His mechanical augmentations had a disquieting tendency to malfunction when he visited Aurans, especially if he strayed more than a quarter mile from his ship. He suspected, although without evidence, that Dwister had used the magic of Aurans to set a permanent defensive curse on Detir's equipment. Detir would have done the same to Dwister had the physics of herbs permitted it. The whirlwind that deposited Dwister near the endgame sparkled with fragments of mica. They rained around Dwister, newly garbed in fresh snowy robes, as the whirlwind dispersed. The overall effect was to give the desert sheik a halo. As usual, Dwister was accompanied by Slive. The blonde tarantula hated Detir, largely because it could not find a way to bite the disembodied brain. Detir, who, like Slive, was somewhat telepathic, was well aware of this and exploited it whenever possible. Dwister carried a small rolled carpet tucked under his right arm. He shook it out, and a small pavilion, complete with a table of refreshments, manifested. Permitting himself a small grin from the corner of his mouth, Dwister seated himself cross-legged in the shade. Not permitting himself to express his surprise, Detir brought the conversation directly to the matter at hand.
Both your universe and mine have been put into stasis, he said bluntly. Were it not for Rene Corda's intervention, they would still be so.
Yours might be, Dwister said, but I know the secrets of reactivating mine. I simply chose not to do so. Detir waved a Waldo.
I, too, know how to reactivate my universe. That is not the point. Had it not been for Corda, I would have left herbs in stasis and waited to see if the criminal returned. Corda's intervention made this difficult to do. He forced me, as he forced you, to reveal your activity.
Lifting a crystal carafe and admiring the play of light through its facets, Dwister poured himself a small glass of date wine. Pointedly, he did not offer any to Detir. The disembodied brain did not eat or drink in a conventional fashion, but it might have requested some other form of hospitality. Dwister would have been put in an awkward social position. Detir knew quite well that Dwister observed the antiquated hospitality rules of the Arab peoples. These rules granted protection to anyone to whom you gave water, bread, or salt, a rule later extended to encompass any form of food or drink. Dwister really did not know if these rules would include crude oil or diesel fuel, but he did not care to discuss such semantics with Detir. Let their alliance stand as it had these 50 or so standard years, and leave it at that.
So, Rene Corda forced us to act other than we might have wished, Dwister said. For this he will, of course, have to die. But I do not need to confer with you, my metal-bound ally, to know this. Come to the point.
Detir drew what looked like a circuit diagram in the sand with the tip of one of his Waldo extensors.
"Do we warn Alakra of what has occurred?"
he said, his tones shrill.
"Is this within the bounds of our mutual non-aggression and protection compact?"
"I believe we should warn him," Twister said, "although not precisely for those reasons. Rene Corda was sent both here and to Herbs by some outside agency. If we do not warn Alakra, he may be warned by this outside agency. Then he will wonder why we did not warn him. If we do warn him, then we are taking friendly initiative. Alakra may feel a debt and whatever else I think of him, Alakra scrupulously honors his debts."
"It will be as you have said, then," Detir replied. A message missile is being drafted even as we speak. Perhaps it will arrive before Rene Corda, perhaps not. Perhaps Rene Corda does not head to Fortuna, but analysis of his departure trajectory from the vicinity of Al-Aran's entry point leads me to believe that Fortuna is his destination.
Twister finished his palm wine and rolled up his rug. The pavilion vanished. He stood tall, slim, and as deadly as the scimitar at his side.
"I, for one, shall take the Lawrence and pursue Rene Corda," he announced, not quite phrasing his announcement as a question, but something in his tone making it so.
Detir twittered.
"And I, too. Perhaps we should sail in company."
Twister nodded.
"Yes, that will be wise. 2 ships can attack with more finesse than 1.
"And then the jester will be laughing smoke and fire," Detir concluded, with a rare leap into metaphor. "And soon she will not be laughing at all."
Chapter 14. Entry into the universe of Fortuna will be achieved in about 40 minutes, Jester announced. I sent your message ahead to the relay beacon, and we are indeed expected. With a conspiratorial wink, she shifted to her read line. "And I've arranged for the honeymoon suite at the Oceanic Casino for Tico and Miriam. Erebu has requested a room in a region called the Old West. He wants to see an old friend who works there. Our rooms will be in the Black Pyramid." "Our rooms?" Corda said, arching an eyebrow at her. The image on the holopad giggled. "Why, Sugar Pop, I never knew you liked me that much. Of course I'll stay in your room." Corda sighed, realizing what he had walked into. So much for romantic dalliance in this universe. Jester would get sulky, and with the saboteur still at large, he needed her full cooperation. "Tell us about Fortuna," Miriam said, when he left the bridge and joined the others in the galley. "I know the entire universe is devoted to gambling, but I hardly know what to expect." Erebu hastened to clarify her question for Corda. Perhaps he thought the universe creator would think Aurans was uncosmopolitan.
"We do have gambling in Aurans, especially on camel races and on feats of skill. Card games are also popular, but dice has never been so. Magic makes nudging a falling cube a bit too easy."
Corda rubbed his chin, trying to summarize what he had read in both the Terran regional representative's notes and in Fortuna's own promotional brochures. "Fortuna's an odd place," he began. "As with the other God's Pockets universes, it was created about 50 years ago. Unlike the others, most of which I had not heard of until I took this job, it is open to the public. Fortuna's economy is based on gambling and nothing else. There is a planet called Trax devoted exclusively to racing. Aqua is a water world used for water sports and big game hunting. Fortuna proper is covered with casinos. Basically, if there is a game that people can take a risk on, Fortuna has facilities for it." Some of the cynicism that Corda was learning underlay Tico's cheerful exterior surfaced now.
Seems like people would stop coming to a place like Fortuna, he said. A closed shop doesn't exactly give the best odds.
Corda slid a note screen containing various of Fortuna's official brochures across the table to him. "Look at this, Tico," he said. "Fortuna actually posts the starting odds on various races well in advance. The payoff odds for the slot machines shift regularly, but they are posted as well. Whenever possible, odds are posted for any contest. It's the Fortuna equivalent of a stock market report." Miriam studied the readout. "How strange," she commented. "I thought that the way gamblers get hooked is by believing the odds are better than they are." "Anyone who reads a posting would acquire a very realistic idea of what the chances of a big win are." Corda chuckled. "That shows that you aren't much of a gambler, except on your bearded swain there." Tico gripped Miriam's hand.
"I am no gamble. I am as reliable as the two suns, as constant as—"
"Time?" Jester quipped. Tico laughed.
"You are too quick for me, imp."
Corda continued his lecture. "Miriam, gamblers don't gamble because they believe the odds are with them. They gamble because they believe that luck is with them. On Fortuna, the usual greeting is good fortune to you, or some variation on that theme. Lady Luck is their goddess."
"Allah protect us,"
Tico said. Corda keyed a new screen on the reader. "I'm certain that Allah will, Tico. But it will help if all of us remember the basic rules of Fortuna. There are two premises, and the rest of the legal code is extrapolated from them. The first," Miriam read aloud, "is a bet is a bet and to be honored as such. That sounds obvious." Arabu gave one of his mysterious smiles.
It does so indeed, my daughter. But I recall an event that occurred during one of my visits to Fortuna. That first rule means that one must watch one's language with great care. There was an Aranzan wine importer who made a deal to deliver a cargo of rare vintages in time for the camel races. In the course of sealing the contract, his Fortunan customer asked him if the wines would arrive in time. The foolish merchant replied, "I would bet my life on it." When the wines did not arrive in time, his life was forfeit.
Miriam steepled her fingers and bowed to her father. "I will remember your wisdom, father. I wouldn't want to make a bet I would not care to keep." "You bet," Chester giggled. Corda sighed and shook his head before reciting the second rule. On Fortuna, cheating is not wrong unless the cheater is caught.
"That is strange," Tico said. "Why should they put such emphasis on posting the odds on their games and then permit cheating?"
"As I understand it," Corda said, "cheating is viewed as another form of gambling, one that is less structured than many. However, the penalties can be severe. Sometimes a dealer will simply exact a fine. Other times, the penalty is a fine combined with exile from Fortuna. Death is not an uncommon penalty and is always enacted in the case of a repeat offense." Tico slipped his arm around Miriam's waist and pulled her close.
"And I am taking my sweet new wife to this murderous place for our honeymoon?"
"Don't worry, Tico," Jester assured him. "She's got to like it better than she liked Keter beasts." Miriam stuck her tongue out at the hologram and Jester wiggled happily. The computer had never had so many friends to interact with. Corda suspected that she would never again be as content with his solitary retirement. With a sudden flash of intuition, he wondered if he would be. That, however, was a question for when the job was done. Entry to Fortuna was drawing near. "Don't worry, Tico," Corda assured his friend. "There is much to do in Fortuna that does not involve gambling. The casinos are architectural marvels. Musicians from throughout the known universes come to perform in the nightclubs. The sports facilities are open to amateurs as well as professionals, as long as you don't mind people on the sidelines betting on things as silly as whether or not you will hit the ball or stay up on your water skis." And when the games get dull, you do have a new wife. Jester winked. Both Tico and Miriam blushed. Almost as if he could see the young couple's response, Arabu chuckled.
And if all of that fails to amuse, we can all help you to capture this mysterious saboteur.
Corda bit his lip. Yes and no. I don't want to put you at risk, but given the population of Fortuna, extra eyes and ears would be useful to me. Unlike herbs and aurans, this universe is going to be active. Won't Alakra let you simply wait in the world key? Miriam asked. Or is that a stupid hope? No hope is ever stupid, Corda reassured her. But I do not think Alakra will let me into his universe's control center. That would be a tremendous risk for him to take. I'm not certain he'll like the odds.
Odds?
Arabu asked. Yep, Corda said. The odds that I won't betray him, that an enemy and anyone rich enough to own a pocket universe has enemies, won't capture me and get the information from me, or any number of other possibilities. Tico frowned.
Yes, especially after working for Sheik Twister, I can understand this worry about internal security. Still, Alakra must want the saboteur caught.
I'm certain that he does, Corda said, but I'm not at the expense of making things easy for potential future saboteurs. Honestly, we may not be able to catch up with the saboteur until he has done his job. Then the odds will be more in our favor because only a limited number of people will have bottled time. You'll let us have some, won't you? Miriam asked. Corda laughed. Of course. It will restrict your choice of attire some, but I suggest that you each carry a full 8-hour harness with you at all times. Hang it on the bedpost at night. I'll give you a comm link with the Jester so if we're apart and stasis falls, we'll be able to stay in touch.
The other people you expect to have time, Arabu said, would be members of Alakra's own staff, correct?
That's right, said Corda, nodding. I'll try and get an idea of how many when I see Alakra, so it will be us against them. So it will be us and them against the saboteur.
I noticed that you have started using the singular, Tico said. When did you become convinced that we have one opponent?
Corda shrugged. When I looked around the world key in Aurans, I had a sense that this was the work of one person, quite likely a person I know. However, I could be wrong. It could be a team, or it could be one universe designer with a mess of mercenary bodyguards. So stay alert. Jester waved her hand for attention. Excuse me, folks. We are about to enter Fortuna. I'll need the boss to deal with people stuff and all that. Corda rose and headed to the bridge. Does Fortuna still read active, Jess? It does, the computer answered. We've been cleared through customs. After you deal with some standard entry treaties, you have been requested to attend a brief meeting with Alakra. Very good, Corda said, seating himself in his command chair. Take us on in. You bet, boss. The computer giggled at her own joke, but her electronic hand on the helm was firm and steady as she took them through the solar system. Outer system traffic is heavy, Jester reported. I'd give odds that there is a major event planned. No takers, Corda said with a grin. The forms he needed to fill out were handled quickly. He messaged them off and checked his gear. This time the variable setting on the universe tool was a probability driver, a device that could be used to alter the odds in a situation. Recalling Fortuna's attitude towards cheating, Corda hoped he wouldn't need to use it. Due to Tico and Miriam's help on Aurans, he hadn't needed the universal tool there. Maybe he would be as lucky here. Corda glanced at the navigation screen as they passed the blue and white globe of Aqua, the varicolored surface of tracks, and then homed in on Fortuna, which looked almost prosaic by comparison. Descending through the Earth-normal atmosphere, the Jester homed in on a landing beacon and zipped lower and lower over the urban sea of Fortuna's neon-outlined buildings. When they were directly overhead, the top of the Black Pyramid opened and a landing platform rose. The jester touched down, cutting off external engines and growing silent as the platform lowered. The sides of the pyramid folded closed, and the building swallowed them. Corda was rather surprised to learn that his meeting with Alacra was to take place in the office of the Fortuna Transportation Director. Somehow he'd imagined a more glitzy setting, some place like a booth in a darkened nightclub or an office filled with tasteless curios and pictures of Alacra with various celebrities. He certainly hadn't expected this barren utilitarian compartment directly off one of the main hangars, but it was here that the transportation director had brought him. "Call me Irish," the freckled redhead said in a brogue that was explanation enough for the nickname. "Alacra said you should be waiting for him here now. Himself is off to Trax for the solar regatta, but he'll give you a moment or two of his time before he goes." "I'm grateful that he will," Corda said. "Do you know anything about the situation?" Irish winked at him. "Well, now, I haven't been told anything more than I should know, but I'll wager that you're here to deal with the fellow whose ship we have under guard in Transport Bay 4. Nice ship she is, sleek and mean-looking. I bet she's built for more than speed." "I'd like to have a look at it after I speak with Alacra," Corda said. "If Alacra doesn't have a problem with your looking at the ship, I certainly don't." Irish's chuckle made a riddle out of his words. "But I suspect the ship might want to be given a word or two first." Corda might have asked more, but there was a sound in the hangar outside, a sound remarkably like the collected trot of a well-trained dressage horse. Then a towering shadow blocked the doorway. It was a woman, at least 7 feet tall and rippling with muscle. Her brown hair was skinned back in a severe fashion that emphasized the bones of her face. She wore a skin-tight black jumpsuit trimmed at throat and wrists with white. A natty bow tie and a businesslike handgun completed the ensemble. "Hands on the bulkhead," she snapped by way of the greeting, "and spread your legs, and keep that PDA out of my face or I'll shoot it down." Blinking to keep from revealing his astonishment, Corda did as he had been commanded. After he had submitted to the most thorough, although utterly professional, patting down of his long career, he was permitted to take his hands from the wall. "He's clean, Alacra," the woman called into the corridor. "He's carrying bottled time and some other tools, but no weapons." "Except for your hands and feet, right, boss?" an indignant gesture printed across his reed line. Corda didn't bother replying, but he gave the PDA a small smile that made him feel more confident than this particular greeting had left him. He needed all the confidence he could garner when Alacra entered Irish's office. Nothing in the Terran Regional Representative's documents had prepared him for what stood before him. Perhaps her office had not known. Perhaps they had merely thought it unimportant. Fortuna publicity photos had only shown Alacra from the waist up, perhaps because the rest would not fit well in a standard frame. Alacra was a centaur. He stood at least a foot taller than his bodyguard, his human portion that of a muscular man in his mid-30s. His horse body was brown, adorned with a silvery white tail like a palomino. The hair on Alacra's head was shaved except for a trailing mohawk that was a matching silver streak with fluorescent pink. Clothing did not seem to be Alacra's style, but this did not mean that he didn't care for body ornamentation. His arms and sections of his torso were tattooed with designs that Corda suspected were Lucky Charms. Multiple fine gold rings pierced his earlobes. A larger one adorned his navel. The entire effect was completed by a large cigar held firmly between teeth that would have done credit to a horse. "Wow," Jester whispered, tucking her PDA under Corda's ear. For once it seemed that the computer was intimidated. An odd thing, Corda realized, since her own body massed far larger than Alacra's.
"Rene Corda,"
Alacra said, removing his cigar as he spoke.
"Good fortune to you. I hope you will enjoy your stay on Fortuna."
"Fortune follow you," Corda answered politely. "I suspect that I will enjoy my visit. Thank you for letting me continue my investigation in your universe.
Not a problem,
Alacra said.
I'm not really worried. My security is on the lookout for the intruder. Still, if the Terrys want to send a few more to join the chase, it only adds to the fun.
Corda took a deep breath and immediately regretted it. Alacra's cigar smelled putrid. Alacra, how do you know that this intruder is my target? Poking his cigar back into his mouth, Alacra spoke around it.
Give him the dope, West.
The bodyguard looked down at Corda. The usual procedure for guests on arrival in Fortuna is to submit their ships to DEED radar probes. This ship, the Shrike, was probed as standard procedure. Initial analysis showed nothing out of the ordinary, and the Shrike was given its berth. Its single passenger, a male human who gave his name as Montgomery Cristo, was permitted entry into the universe. When the tape was submitted to a standard review, a glitch appeared that troubled South, the intelligence officer on duty. She ran the tape again and became convinced that the Shrike was equipped with a device that automatically jammed any probe and inserted false information into its data stream. Had South not detected the splice, we would not have been able to narrow down the suspects when the agent for the Terran regional representative contacted Alacra with her warning. When West stopped speaking, Corda asked, "Has this Montgomery Cristo been located or his ship searched?" West shook her head. No to both questions. He has apparently vanished, and his ship is guarded by a high-powered security system. We are pursuing the matter, but with so many visitors in the universe for the solar regatta, our resources are stretched. Do you have any pictures of him? Corda asked. It may help me to recognize him. Wordlessly, West keyed a note screen and extended it to Corda. Displayed on it was a short video of a young man with light brown hair and extraordinarily average appearance. Neither plain nor handsome, he could vanish in a crowd of two. Corda frowned. I believe we can guess where Cristo will be heading. I request permission to wait for him there. As expected, Alacra shook his head in an eloquent negative. Removing his cigar, he stabbed the air to punctuate his points. Sorry, I can't risk it. He may not find it, or he may track your activity and find it more easily. I suggest you nose around for as long as you wish. Treat your stay here as a vacation. If time goes out, then go to work. If not, we wait until the regatta is over, and then we quietly check everyone in the universe. Why not before or during the regatta? Corda asked, though he suspected that his suggestions would fall on deaf ears. Alacra looked astonished that Corda would even suggest a change in his plan. This is the regatta, he said. The solar regatta, the single most important sporting event in Fortuna. It's fast becoming one of the top 10 most watched events in the universe prime. I don't want news of a manhunt made public and beamed out with the sports news to every planet and pocket universe. He loomed over Corda. I don't want to take the risk, Corda. Relax, have a good visit. You'll find a line of credit has already been opened for your party. Play some games while you ask around. The best way to be obvious here is to not play games. I see the wisdom of your action, Corda said. I will do as you request. Good. Alacra smiled and stuck out an enormous hand to shake Corda's. Now, I'm on my way to the pre-race events and to limber up my ship. I'm flying the Jolly Roger, and much as I want the win, the odds aren't in my favor. Solar sailing isn't my only hobby like it is for so many of these people. Still, I don't want to make a fool of myself. Fortune sail with you, Corda said, shaking Alacra's hand in return. And thank you for your briefing, West. It was a pleasure, West said, but her face showed no real emotion. I will be with Alacra, but other members of the security staff will be here to help you. Please remember that you do not have legal immunity here, even if you are working with us. The laws of Fortuna bind you and your friends as they do any visitors. I will remember, Corda promised. When Alacra and West had left, Irish turned to Corda. Quite a woman, Westy. Well, they're all like that. We call them the cardinal points. They're all alike, but distinct. Clones, you see, perfect for their job and as devoted to Alacra as they can be. Now, how about taking a look at another intimidating lady? I don't understand, Corda said.
The Shrike, Irish said, laughing. The spaceship. Ships are ladies, are they not? And the Shrike is an imposing lady indeed. I bet she's not as smart as I am, Jester said in Corda's ear. She hadn't brought her PDA out of concealment. Right, boss? I'm not certain that anyone is as smart as you, Jester, Corda said. At least not as smart-mouthed. Boss, you're just plain mean. Irish was listening to the exchange with amusement. Why now, isn't that a cute little PDA? Do you think I've ever seen the like? You call her Jester, do you? Same as my ship, Corda said. Jester, meet Irish, the transportation director of Fortuna. Hi, Irish, Jester answered, bobbing her PDA out to flirt with the transportation director. Ah, you're a fine, sweet lass, he chortled. Lovely design. Gee, Jester managed to seem coy. You say the nicest things, Irish. Corda sighed and let Jester prattle on until they came to where the Shrike stood on a locked landing platform. Christo's ship was indeed sleek and lean. It was also well armed. Corda noted over a dozen weapon placements, including a contingent of missile tubes. Shrike is a nice security system, Irish said. Discriminating too, or we would have frayed several cardinal points before we gave up. Let me show you. He walked toward the ship, but before he was within 5 feet, a flat, vaguely female voice said, Warning, password needed for further access. Irish walked back to Corda and shrugged. She's like that. Won't chat you like your Jester. Just says those 6 words. If you close within 4 feet, she fires a shot at your fate. Next shot is to kill. We would have lost north, but that those jumpsuits the points wear have reflect in the weaves. As is, she was pretty badly burned. Anything in your scan? Corda sub-vocalized to Jester. Not a sugar pop, Jester answered on his read line. Did you notice that the Shrike has almost no cargo capacity? She has enough for standard gear and for her missiles, but not enough to make looting worthwhile. If Montgomery Christo is our man, then he either has other ships to carry his junk, or loot isn't what he's after. Corda grunted his agreement and continued to study the Shrike. He didn't plan to amuse Irish by shouting guesses at the Shrike security system. Hell, there might be a 3 strikes and you're out rule in effect, and he didn't plan to go out that way. We're going to need to do some further investigating before we try that security system, he said aloud. Jester, start a library search on the word Shrike and the name Montgomery Christo. They may contain some clue. Right, boss, she said. Corda shrugged. I guess the best we can do is follow Alakra's instructions. Let's go check into our room here in the casino and make certain that the others haven't had no problems with theirs. Irish, thank you for your help. The freckled redhead grinned. This is more excitement than my department has seen in ages. I'm pleased to be in on it. Give a call if you need any more help. I'm certain that the cardinal points will know where to reach you if you have any news. They probably will, Corda said, vaguely depressed at the thought of 7-foot Amazons watching his every move. They probably will. Later that night, although true to the tradition of casinos everywhere, Fortuna did not make a point of dividing night from day. Corda and Jester met with Tico, Miriam, and Arabu in the Café Oceana for a meal and discussion. We found that Alakra is covering all our expenses during the visit and has given us a credit line, Miriam said as soon as drinks had been ordered. This is quite a change from how Dwister treated us on Aurans. It is cooler, too, Corda said, looking around the restaurant appreciatively. It was decorated like an enormous coral reef. Curving transparent walls held back the water, but everything, even their table and the benches for their booth, was part of the aquarium. Little fish swam away from bigger fish. Sharks glided sinuously around the barriers invisible to anyone except themselves. All around the diners, the game of predator and prey was played out in elegant silence. Corda thought the aquarium was a pretty good metaphor for Fortuna at large. The 3 desert dwellers were delighted with the experience. Miriam peppered her father with descriptions of what she was seeing, and Arabu laughed, caught up in her enthusiasm. He claimed to be able to feel some of the vibrations of the creatures swimming in the aquarium.
in one instance so skillfully locating a particularly vigorous moray eel that Miriam gaped at him in awe. Corda didn't know whether to believe Arabu or not, but the Oranzans were so generous in sharing their pleasure at the new experiences that he felt much as he had the first time he had seen something of the sort. He realized that he had forgotten what a tonic the presence of younger people could be, and found himself wondering what other vital details of enjoying life he had let slip over the decades. The menu was fresh seafood, some taken from the aquariums, others brought in from the lakes on Fortuna or the vast ocean of Aqua. Corda ordered a shrimp scampi heavy on the garlic. Arabu had a salmon fillet in a tarragon and dill cream sauce, while the honeymooners split an enormous sampler of broiled and fried delicacies. Jester, of course, could eat nothing, but Miriam insisted on pouring a ceremonial thimble-sized cup of wine for the PDA. "To do else would be less than mannerly," she said, "for you were my maid of honor, and should take part in our celebration." Bringing her PDA to dip over the cup, rather like a bee over a flower, Jester sampled the wine. "A fine bouquet," she announced sententiously, authoritative without being overwhelming, piquant with a faint undertone of raspberry, an excellent accompaniment for the meal. Tico grinned and saluted the PDA with his own goblet. "A fine analysis, Jester. I could have used you during my brief, disastrous tenure as a purchaser of gourmet food and wines for the palace on Arwens." He went on to tell a series of quick anecdotes, all of which made quite clear that he was a far better diplomat than Gournay. Arabu, in particular, was greatly amused and contributed tales of his own. Corda listened cheerfully. The business at hand put aside once, he reminded Jester to stay alert for attempts to monitor their conversation. "It wouldn't be easy to bug this place," she replied on his reed line, given the danger that stasis could fall at any moment. Corda had carried along most of his tools, though he had given up his practical jumpsuit for evening dress. "The aquariums block anything directional. There is a mic set in the table, but it's certainly not activated. If you set your glass just to the right upper quadrant of your plate, you'll set up a distortion so that even if it is activated, all they'll get is fragments of what you're saying." Corda did as Jester advised, and until dinner was over and dessert was served, he deliberately avoided any attempts to turn the conversation to business. Only when the server, a goldfish-shaped robot with limited anti-grav who delivered their orders on a scallop shell cart, had left a carafe of coffee and another of tea, did he permit Tico to lure him into discussing how they might go after the saboteur.
"Come now, friend," Tico said. "We have watched your determination as you work to undo the saboteur's work. On our ends, we insist that you let us help you here. You cannot convince us that your plan to let him work unopposed on Fortuna while you play gambling games and eat fine food."
"He's got you there, Pop," Jester said. "Tell him what's up." Shaking his head in mock despair, Corda studied the newlyweds. "I bring the two of you to the finest resort universe in existence, give you the opportunity for a honeymoon to tell your grandchildren about. And you ask me to put you to work."
"Do not forget me," Arabu said. "This blind old man has learned that blindness can help one to discover secrets, for people often forget that the blind can hear quite well indeed."
"I haven't forgotten you, Arabu," Corda said, resting his hand for a moment on the man's arm. "Very well, let me start with some background. Right now, it's not much help, but it may give some insight later on." Miriam nodded. "Just as you knew that Dwister would find challenge to a duel hard to resist, and so saved me, so some small piece of knowledge may save one of us later." "Or not," Corda shrugged. "But here's what I have. Jester did some research for me, and learned what a shrike is." "Jess?" "There are several meanings for the word," Jester said in a pompous, professorial voice. "However, most can easily be discarded. The one that drew itself to Renee and my attention was the following. A carnivorous bird, also called a butcher bird, from its peculiar habit of hanging its kills on thorns, thus creating a larder." Corda tapped the tabletop, drawing the attention of a curious angelfish. We have not been able to get access to the shrike itself, and since we suspect that it is set to self-destruct if entered by any but acceptable channels, we don't plan on forcing our way in.
Self-destruct, Tico said. Isn't that rather drastic? Our saboteur would strand himself in that case.
I don't think that would worry him, Corda said. His actions demonstrate supreme self-confidence, verging on arrogance. I suspect if the Shrike blew itself up, he would just pirate another ship. Arabu sipped his thick, dark coffee and set down the cup.
That sounds like someone with a confirmed criminal mentality.
Maybe, Corda said. Certainly the shutting down of privately owned universes is hardly the action of a law-abiding person. However, our saboteur may believe that he transcends the law. Jess, tell them your deductions about the name Montgomery Cristo.
Right, boss, the PDA continued in her professorial voice. In France, during the first stage of the fat novel, as determined by the current literary calendar, an author named Alexander Dumas published a book entitled The Count of Monte Cristo.
Oh, Miriam said, clapping her hands. I've read that. It's the story of a young man who was arrested for a political crime of which he was completely innocent. His enemies arranged for him to be imprisoned for life, and then one stole his job while another married his fiancée.
Jester bobbed. Her professorial guise dropped in enthusiasm for the story.
Edmond Dantes, that was the man's name, escaped the prison and, after becoming a wealthy and powerful man, returned to his homeland to take vengeance on those who had wronged him.
Miriam picked up the thread again, speaking more slowly as the implications became clear.
Dantes believed himself beyond the laws of either God or man, and in his arrogance was responsible not only for the deaths of his enemies, but for the deaths of some who were innocent as well. In the end, he leaves a letter to the son and daughter of his enemies apologizing for his arrogance.
I wonder, Arabu said, if our Montgomery Cristo remembers all of the story, or only the stirring tale of vengeance that precedes Edmond Dantes' final words.
Corda shook his head. I don't know, but I think his pseudonym may provide an interesting insight into his mind.
I wonder who he believes wronged him, Tico said. He has struck at 3 universes. Does he want the owners or the creators?
I suspect the owners, Corda said. The universes were created by at least 3 different universe designers. As far as I know, none of their other works have been damaged. These universes, however, all belong to God's Pockets Consortium. My belief is that the saboteur holds something against them.
Did you speak with the designers?
Arabu asked.
Yes, I did, Corda said. One was an old friend, one of my former teachers, and the other 2 extended me professional courtesy. Well, one did. The other had died under somewhat suspicious circumstances.
Oh, Miriam exclaimed, while the men looked grave.
Yes, Corda continued. A fire that not only killed her, but also destroyed her records. Jester, remind me to send messages to Nazim Rokhtar and Charlie Bell telling them of Clea Triffids' deaths. If we word it right, it will serve as a warning as well. Good idea, boss, Jester said. You know, if the saboteur knows who the owners of God's Pockets are, he's one up on us. We have no idea of their real identities. I've run checks on Detir, Dwister, and Alacra, and not one of them appear to have any history before taking up residence in their universes. So I saw in your report, Corda said. Universe Prime is too large and varied a place for us to try and trace each of them. I doubt any of the owners look much like they did when they started. You know, boss, Jester said, I've been wondering about Alacra's use of the word Terry when he was talking to us before.
Terry? Tico repeated.
Yeah, Jester explained. It's criminal slang, specifically spacefaring for the Terran authorities. Each planet and pocket universe has its own government for local crime, but the Terran regional government has jurisdiction over spaces in between. Smugglers and pirates in particular have a lot to fear from them, since many worlds and some universes extend automatic permission to pursue to the Terran investigators.
I take it, Arabu said. that the God's Pockets universes did not have such a permission on record.
No, Corda said. Had Alacra not extended his invitation, I could not have come here to do this job so openly. Herbs and Aurons were in stasis, so the legal ramifications were a bit grayer. Tico rubbed his beard with the palms of his hands.
So you wonder if Alacra, and by extension Detir and Twister, might be criminals. If only the universe was not so vast. But I doubt that even Fair Jester could answer that for us before the Saboteur next strikes.
I'm only as good as the information in my databanks, Jester agreed. I can try, but if I'm helping the boss and monitoring my usual jobs, then it's going to have tertiary priority. Corda patted the PDA. Don't worry about it, Jess. I am going to need you with me. He frowned. I found another thing odd. The Terran regional representative told me she informed Alacra indirectly about the threat to Fortuna, but he made it quite obvious that he knew who was behind the message.
That seems to suggest that he has a rather elaborate spy system in place,
Tico said thoughtfully.
And routinely uses it, Arabu added. An action quite at odds with his bluff, hearty exterior.
What's your plan, Renee? Miriam asked. I intend to locate the world key. Alacra may not want to give me the location, but if I find it on my own, I can be waiting for our saboteur. I also stand a better chance of finding him if I'm pursuing the same goal.
Brilliant, Tico said. And what shall we do?
Stand by and be ready to help, Corda said. Listen, for rumors of interesting strangers, odd crimes, security alerts, any of these could help us pin down the location of Mr. Christo. It doesn't seem like much, Miriam said doubtfully. Corda smiled. It may be more than you know. Are any of you particularly good with a hand weapon?
I am, Tico said. On Herbs you are not respected unless you are a master of one or more weapons. I choose hand energy weapons because they were small and comparatively easy to learn.
Miriam studied him. Did that earn you much respect? Laughing, Tico hugged her.
No, not really, but it earned me enough that I could perform trade negotiations. What would you have me shoot, Renee?
Nothing and no one, if we can help it, Corda said. But it occurs to me that as soon as stasis falls, the saboteur may head for his ship. If you were to get there before him and slow his access, we might be able to catch him. Tico nodded sharply.
I know my post then.
Don't take it too seriously, Corda said. I hope to prevent him, in which case your skill will not be needed. Arabu lifted the coffee pot, found it empty, and set it down again.
Do you want
me to order more, Arabu? Jester asked solicitously.
No, Arabu replied. I think not. I shall return to my hotel and sleep. My friend Sam has invited me to lunch tomorrow. I would not wish to be too groggy to enjoy the meeting.
Let us take you back to the Old West, Tico said. After that dinner I could use a stretch and a walk.
Arabu looked as if he would protest, then he smiled.
You are a good son, Tico. Yes, walk with me. I think you and Miriam will enjoy the train.
Miriam turned to Corda. Will you join us, Renee? Corda shook his head. No, I'm going to crash for a few hours and then get to work. They parted outside the Oceanic Casino. Corda walked briskly toward the Black Pyramid. Jester, where did you say Magnetic North is located? Actually, boss, it's out near the end of the rail line, near the Old West, where Arabu is staying. Corda looked after the others. They were still in sight. Hey! He yelled. Wait up, I've changed my mind. The Oranzans stopped and Corda ran to rejoin them. Jester's PDA flew near his ear. Boss, aren't you going to get some sleep? Corda sub-vocalized his reply. I only said that to reassure the others. I want them to enjoy their vacation, but realistically, I don't know how much time we have before the saboteur makes his move. He slowed and the companions resumed their walk toward the rail station. Even as he joked with the others, Corda couldn't get rid of a sneaking suspicion that time, bottled or not, was once again running out.